Dumbo was the fourth film to be released by Disney, and is every bit as iconic as the previous Disney films I've reviewed so far. The film is about a newborn elephant named Dumbo, who has a hard time due to being constantly made fun of due to the massive size of his ears. And after he loses his mother, a mouse takes pity on him and decides to work with him to make his situation better. With this mouse as his only friend, Dumbo hopes to both win the respect of the other animals at the circus and also reunite with his mother, who's been locked up after trying to stop a group of boys from picking on Dumbo. After seeing Dumbo, it's pretty clear to me that the films that Walt Disney produced were very simple. If you look at the films made during the Disney Renaissance, you'll see more eventful stories and typically a wider cast of characters. But having more doesn't necessarily mean the films from the Renaissance are better. After all, having more things happening in a movie means that the film has more of a chance to make a mistake. But simplicity can also be both beneficial and harmful to a film, depending on how it's used. Snow White was both helped and hurt by its simplicity, while Pinocchio managed to take its simplicity and create a masterpiece out of it. Dumbo is closer to Snow White than Pinocchio in how its simplicity affects the film as a whole. In fact, I think Dumbo may be hurt by its simplicity even more so than Snow White was. Let me say that I'd only seen Dumbo once before watching it again recently, and honestly, I didn't care too much for it the first time I saw it. But knowing that many people look at Dumbo as one of the greatest of all Disney films, I was excited to see it again. However, I'm afraid that the result was a bit underwhelming. Dumbo is far from bad, and it has a lot going for it, but there isn't anything to propel it above its simple story. The characters in Dumbo are pretty good overall, but there isn't any character who I really liked. Dumbo is pretty likable, although very basic and somewhat bland, and the gossipy elephants are pretty entertaining. I also really like the crows, although they aren't in the film for very long. Besides Dumbo, the only other character we see a lot of is the mouse who helps him, and I'm going to be honest, I don't care for this guy too much. He seems nice, and it's great that he wants to help Dumbo, but he pales in comparison to Jiminy Cricket, who basically played the exact same role in Pinocchio. Like I said, he's a nice guy, but he just doesn't have the charm of a typical good Disney character, and I also really didn't like his accent. I think that the setup for the story was actually pretty good, but not much was done with it. Having a character as vulnerable as Dumbo taken away from his mother was a great idea, and the way they got separated was perfect to set up the emotional tone of the story. But after they got separated, not much happens. Unlike Pinocchio, where isolated incidents build up the characters in the story to a grand finish, Dumbo's incidents just feel like isolated scenes, and they don't seem to flow together very well. So ultimately what we have with Dumbo are about 5 or 6 scenes that, while entertaining enough, do nothing to better develop characters or build the story up. There are moments in the story that are great, however. The scene where Dumbo reunites with his mother is a very emotional scene, and the song that plays during this scene is a great song. The pink elephant scene is also a great scene, filled with really good animation. But even that scene seems to go on for too long. I wouldn't have had a huge problem with the pink elephant scene if there had been other scenes in the movie that better developed the characters. But since the film is so short, and the scenes don't really do much to better the characters, this scene where literally nothing really happens except for impressive animation feels like it goes on for a long time. The ending is probably the most famous scene from the movie, and I was surprised at just how short it is. There are literally about 2 minutes left in the movie when they get the idea for Dumbo to fly at the circus, and I'm not even sure the flying scene lasts longer than a minute. And because there was literally no build-up to this scene at all, it didn't leave the same impact on me that the ending to Pinocchio did. And before you say that I'm being unfair by comparing this film to Pinocchio, I want to make it clear that I'm not doing anything of the sort. My complaints with this movie are from legitimate flaws that are in the film, and my comparing it to Pinocchio is only to show that a film like this, with this kind of simplicity to it, could have worked really well if it had been done more effectively. I mean, heck, both Dumbo and Pinocchio are very similar films in terms of setup. The protagonist is the titular character, who is new to the world and has to be guided by a smaller companion who knows more about the world so that they can achieve a goal. Pinocchio's goal is to become a real boy, and Dumbo's is to be reunited with his mother. I mean, it's really pretty weird how similar they are. I want to close my review by saying that, no, the crows did not offend me, although they did make me a bit uncomfortable, to be honest. But does this make Disney racist? I don't think so. I think it's just a reflection of the time period this film was made in, and the crows were pretty likable overall. My favorite character is probably Dumbo himself. However, he is not one of Disney's best characters. There just weren't any really good characters in this movie. My favorite song and favorite scene occur at the same time in the movie, which is when Dumbo is reunited with his mother. The scene is great and filled with emotion, and the song Baby Mine is an equally great song. I want to give a shout out to the song When I See an Elephant Fly. It's also really good, but not quite as memorable as Baby Mine. I know a lot of this review is focused on the negatives, but some of the stuff in this film that is great doesn't need to be said, but I'll say it anyway. The animation is top notch, and the designs of the characters are also very good. And there are some good scenes in the film, such as the ending, the pink elephant scene, which, although a little long, was still very entertaining and very impressive. And the scene I just talked about when Dumbo reunites with his mother, and also the scene with Dumbo and the clowns. I thought that was some pretty entertaining stuff. As I watch these Disney films, I'm going to make a list of films that I need to go back and rewatch before making my judgment on them final. Dumbo will be the first film on that list. It's just, it's heralded as one of the greatest Disney films, and I didn't necessarily see that when I watched it. And I want to make sure that, I didn't miss something when I watched it the first time. So I'm going to go back and watch it before I make the list of my favorite Disney movies when I'm done reviewing all of these. Although many people look at Dumbo as one of Disney's greatest films, I only see a well-made film that is held back by its poorly structured story and only decent cast of characters. I liked Dumbo, but I didn't love it. I'm going to give Dumbo 3.5 stars out of 5. Now that is not a bad score. That is a recommendable score. Anything 3 or higher, I would recommend to someone. But when you look at how well loved this film is as a whole and how highly it's regarded among Disney's classic films, that is a pretty underwhelming score. So like I said, I'm going to rewatch it, and I'm going to make sure that I'm accurate in my critique of it. Make sure there's nothing I missed. But for right now, it is 3.5 stars out of 5. That's how I felt when I watched it. Not bad, but it is underwhelming. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.